Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome inside the Guilty as Charged podcast. This is the More You Know Kansas City Chiefs edition. And joining me to do that today is my guy, Caleb James, former friend of the show. I guess current friend of the show. That's my mistake. He is a contributor and film analyst for Arrowhead Live. Caleb, thanks for joining me again this year. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me on again. And as always, I think we're getting ready to talk about another big one.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be AFC West without the Chargers and Chiefs being kind of the headliner of the week. And we'll certainly dive into a lot of that matchup. Of course, kind of the new era of the Kansas City Chiefs offense and all that good stuff. I do have to start, though. I just saw the changes that they're making to the field for this game. And I have to say, like the retro AFC West look, I'm a big fan. I don't know if you've seen it, but I think that's a really cool thing the Chiefs are doing this week.
Yeah, definitely, man. It's the 50th anniversary of the stadium. So they're basically going all out to give it like that retro feel to how it was back when it first came around in 1972. But yeah, I know, man, the Chiefs are one of the, franchises. They're real big on honoring the past, honoring traditions. So that's just another great way they're looking to do it this year with the slick red end zones.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I love all the old AFC West logos and everything like that. I wish more teams would do that in terms of at least like, from a design standpoint. I would love to see like a, AFC West throwback kind of game on Thursday Night Football or something like that, for example.
No, we might get something like that this week. I mean, the Chiefs uniforms haven't changed a whole lot in the last, 50 or 60 years. That pretty standard red jersey, it's always going to be there at Arrowhead.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you mentioned, we are going to dive into that game, but I want to start with just kind of what you saw on Sunday from the Kansas City Chiefs. And again, we'll talk into a lot of the new personnel and things like that. I don't know if you saw this, but I'm sure you did. But Nate Tice tweeted this out. They talked about it on the Athletic Football Show. The Kansas City Chiefs offense had 66 plays on Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals, and they gained 33 first downs, which we talked about on the show on Tuesday here, which was just kind of crazy. So, what was your first impression on Sunday? Obviously, it's probably a pretty good one from the new Chiefs offense.
Yeah, kind of going against what a lot of the national media said about Tyreek Hill leaving town, the Chiefs are still going to have a very potent offense this year. And you really got to, take a look at it in full swing with all the first downs, like you mentioned. It wasn't just, the Chiefs feeding one or two guys. It was them getting, it was Patrick Mahomes distributing the ball as a collective. But really, they got so many first downs because they were setting themselves up so well on those first downs. They had very few negative plays in the game. The first play of the game, for example, was just a simple power play, and they get about 8 or 9 yards up the middle. That's putting yourself in a great position because you can really do whatever you want from an offensive perspective on that second and third down. That combined with Mahomes, like I just mentioned, distributing the ball to, of course, Travis Kelce, but you get to see the newer guys like Juju Smith-Schuster and MVS start to make a little bit of an impact here and there in the run game. The running backs looked as good as they have in a little while. It led to like this, it was a pounding. I mean, they pounded the Cardinals, who are having some issues defensively. They have a lot of guys out, and the Chiefs just, they were clearly flat out the better team from the time they stepped on the field to the time that the game was over.
Yeah, I know the Cardinals didn't really make a dent on the scoreboard really until late in the fourth quarter. So what's kind of the vibe there? Because I know week one it's still a lot of unknown for pretty much every team that's out there. How much stock are you kind of putting into the blowout of the Arizona Cardinals as opposed to it being like a close game or something like that?
Offensively, this is what I expected from the Chiefs because Arizona, I mean, their secondary is having some major issues. Yeah, they got a couple of pretty good safeties, but all of their starting cornerbacks are out. They didn't really have, their linebackers are young and okay, and their defensive line, they lost Chandler Jones, JJ Watt's out, and they just didn't really have, that much of a threat. But where I was really impressed with the Chiefs in this one is the Chiefs have struggled in the past against mobile quarterbacks. When this whole defense started to come together, they wanted to bring it together to stop like a Tom Brady type guy.
Sure.
But they've had to kind of evolve into having to stop, the Josh Allens, Herberts of the world. And then you get Kyler Murray, who kind of not exactly like those guys from a throwing perspective. But if you let him kill you with his legs, he's going to make it a long day. But really, I was just impressed with the way they were able to contain him. And that's honestly the defense is what I'd look to more than anything for saying, yeah, okay, we can, this was a positive week for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair, and we'll dive into some of those rookie additions. It's unfortunate that obviously Trent McDuffie placed on injured reserve today. He'll miss at least 4 weeks, of course. What do you expect the move to be in the secondary as they try and replace him this week and going forward?
Well, McDuffie, they moved up so many spots in the draft to just pick him up. He's not a rookie who they needs a lot of time to develop, and he's been pretty locked down in the preseason. There's a lot of clips of him playing really good against Juju, really good against MVS. And then, his first taste of action this week goes in, is playing a good game, but unfortunately comes down with the injury. However, they drafted 2 other cornerbacks, and the Chiefs have a lot of corners on the roster. They have a lot of guys with experience. They also have L'Jarius Sneed. They have Rashad Fenton. Those are obviously, the veteran guys in the room. They have 2 rookies also. Jalen Watson, a 7th-round pick from Washington State, and then Josh Williams, coming from Jackson State, the HBCU. I've actually joked around with people in the past. I don't know if we'll see it this game, but he's a 6'3" corner. So maybe the Chiefs have finally found their answer to Mike Williams at some point down the line. Because in the past, I haven't really liked the old 5'10", 5'9" versus 6'3" matchup. I kind of like it when they're more even playing basketball out there.
Sure.
But those guys are talented too. They've shown, and really, it's a real Brett Veach thing. It's a real Steve Spagnuolo thing. They don't mind throwing young corners into the fire and letting them learn early on. Now obviously with Keenan Allen out this week, it makes things a little bit easier for the Chiefs defensively. It kind of mitigates that blow of having McDuffie out some, but there's going to be some guy, I'm sure the Chargers are going to run some plays to test some of those young guys. I think it's just going to be up to Spags to be able to utilize the safety room, with Reed and Thornhill and Brian Cook to be able to really, help out the young corners where they need it.
So would you expect Joshua Williams to be the starter this week, or would you think that they kind of lean on Rashad Fenton and I forget the other veterans guy you just said?
So it's L'Jarius Sneed, and actually, with them drafting these corners, he's much better in the slot. He showed a lot as a slot, in the slot as a rookie. They tried to move him outside. It's not really where he thrives at. This week, they put him in the slot. He has 8 or 9 tackles. He's playing down in the box, almost playing like a safety hybrid, kind of how he did some Tyrann Mathieu type things here and there. So maybe he's filling in that role. But honestly, I would look for the names of Jalen Watson to probably fill in also, because I think he actually got to play more reps than Josh Williams did. He's the 7th-round rookie. He's not a small corner either. He's about 6 foot tall, and he's a pretty physical guy. He plays, he can play man well. I'd be looking for him, but I think they're probably going to have to rely on Fenton and Sneed a lot this week, just on the outsides.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned how they were able to kind of frustrate Kyler Murray. Of course, a lot of that, at least from my view on Pro Football Focus, probably was due to George Karlaftis, the rookie out of Purdue, the other first-round pick that the Chiefs had this past April. So what did you make of the debut of George Karlaftis, and then, by extension, the rest of the pass rushers of the Kansas City Chiefs?
Karlaftis certainly has some juice, but it's nice to get Chris Jones surrounded by a competent unit because he's really what makes that whole unit. He's what makes everything go. And Karlaftis I saw PFF, they had him listed down for 6 pressures, and he did do a good job of getting back there. Kyler Murray's a harder guy to finish the plays on because he's so quick and agile back there. But then you also got, Karlaftis with his power. You've got Carlos Dunlap, who had a sack, who worked the power, who worked well in combination with Chris Jones. The Chiefs only ran 1 stunt this week, and it resulted in a pretty nice sack of Kyler Murray. I'd expect to see more of that here soon. But just having these guys that you can put on the outside around Chris Jones, and then maybe seeing, maybe Frank Clark looking a little bit quicker, it kind of adds a different element to what they want to do pass rush wise that they haven't had in the last couple of seasons. But they did a good job of containing Kyler. They had a couple of, just twist games here or there, or they had a couple of plays where they dropped back. They dropped back Karlaftis some. They dropped back Frank Clark some into coverage, almost like into like a muddled spy kind of look here or there, just to kind of keep him around. I don't know how much of that they'll do this week versus Herbert, But
Yeah.
if he starts killing with his legs, they might revert back to it later on.
Yeah, I mean it's a good thing to have in the toolbox for sure. I want to shift gears here and talk back about the offense because to me, like this Chiefs interior is the best in the league. I don't know if Trey Smith is going to play or not, and perhaps you can speak on that. But what have you seen kind of from the evolution of the Chiefs running game? Because I know you look on again at the statistics are very very good from this past Sunday. Reportedly they've done a lot more like heavy personnel and things like that. Do you expect Andy Reid to really rely, or not? I don't want to say rely, but like be more focused on the run game this year, I should say.
I think that with Patrick Mahomes, it makes it hard to focus on the run game, but I think they have so many good pieces that it just adds another level of what they can do in the offense. And you mentioned that heavy personnel. They ran a high percentage of 13 personnel because they have
Mm,
three pretty talented tight ends on the roster. Well, they have four really. Blake Bell on the IR like this, early on in the season, but they have Jody Fortson who's starting to kind of show as a red zone threat. He looked pretty good, and his only catch of the game was a touchdown. But they also have Noah Gray, fifth round draft pick from Duke last year. They're using him almost like an F back. They're using him right now similar to kind of how he's not. It's definitely not a carbon copy, but some of the run scheme stuff they do a little similar to how Check is used.
okay.
Here and there. So it's a little similar to that, but they have these three guys that they can put on the field and create these blocking mismatches. And the reason they're still mismatches is because they're both they're all three competent. And, Kelsey, of course, but that's really been kind of the big, the theme from camp, the theme from, the preseason is they're getting into these, they're getting under center, they're putting a fullback back there, or they're coming out with three tight ends and 13 or, doing whatever they can in 23. And they're going to come out and, they ran power, they ran zone, same as they always do, but they even mixed in a little outside zone here and there. And they have different guys playing running back. They have Clyde Edwards-Helaire who looked a lot better, but let's get to see more of Jerick McKinnon, what he can do, because we had such a small sample size in the playoffs last
Mm.
year. And then the rookie Isaiah Pacheco, he's definitely a sleeper. I know there's a lot of hype around him at camp, but if you've ever watched him run, when he hits that first hole and he gets into the secondary, he can fly now.
Man, I'm we've talked a lot about the Kansas City Chiefs rookie class today. The Chargers have of course Zion Johnson, but not a whole lot of starters from the rookie class. You look at the Chiefs and it sounds like the whole class is damn near playing well and starting. So I have to say I'm a little bit jealous there of your guys' rookie class.
Well, it's kind of, the Chiefs and Chargers took opposite approaches this offseason. I'm a
Sure,
little
sure.
jealous. You guys, went out and signed Khalil Mack and get 3 sacks on DC. That's always nice. You don't have to look around. You know what you're going to get right there. It's two totally opposite approaches, though. I mean, the Chiefs sold their superstar. They sold, the most explosive player in the league for a pretty good haul of picks. And they've managed, it looks like they've done a good job to capitalize on them. I mean, Leo Chenal hasn't even gotten on the field yet just because of the talent at the linebacker position right now. But the Chargers, they take the exact opposite approach. They give Mike Williams his extension, and then they go out and they're going to get Khalil Mack. They go out and get J.C. Jackson. They get the two best guys available at their position. And I've seen the Chiefs do that before. Also, they did that to go get Frank Clark and Tyrann Mathieu. They spent the money. They spent the
Mm.
picks. They've done it with Orlando Brown. So, it was almost exciting to actually get to enjoy the draft and covering all these new guys.
Yeah, very different approach. The draft has been one of my favorite things because the Chargers, like it's, that's the Super Bowl of the team for the last few years. So I'm sure it was a fun change for you for sure. On our show, when we preview each game, we always do a victory formation segment, which is kind of what we dedicate to essentially like a keys to victory kind of segment. So if I were to ask you, what's your biggest focus, your focal point of the Chiefs attack tomorrow that they absolutely have to accomplish in order to beat the Chargers, what would you say?
I think it's just win the turnover takeaway battle. I think that was the key in the both matchups last season. And,
Mm.
the Chiefs did have one turnover this week. Juju fumbled the football after he did have a pretty nice game. He had about 80 yards receiving, but you can't do with, so many fumble. You can't do with the fumble. And then, I'm just looking briefly at the Chargers and Raiders game. There's a lot of turnovers in that one, kind of
Hmm.
helped the outcome for both ways. It was up in the air there for a second. But I just think if you win the turnover takeaway battle, I think to me that's so big in these games with these high level quarterbacks because it could literally go all night if they let it. It could go back and forth all night between Mahomes and Herbert if they let it. It's just going to be which defense can step up a little bit here and there and get that first takeaway.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. These games are always highly contested, one possession kind of matchup. So if you can get, an interception here or there, then you probably feel better about yourself. I mean, the Chargers in the first game last year, right? They had I think it was 3 interceptions on Mahomes, and they still only won by one possession. So anytime you can steal one is certainly a big deal.
Yeah, and there was a Clyde Edwards-Helaire also fumbled
That's
inside
right.
of the 45 going down to score also. So, I mean, then you come back the second game of the year, Nick Bolton bats a pass up in the air, forces the turnover, and then the giant fumble on the goal line, Tershawn
Mhm.
Wharton forces a
Yep.
fumble, and I think Nick Bolton came in and recovered that one also. So, it's just those are the plays that decide the game a lot of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're really looking forward to it, man. I was messing around on Amazon Prime this morning to try and figure out like how I could like record the game and save it for later and like all that stuff. It's gonna be a new experience for sure. Going to be an exciting time. General feelings as you head into this one, and then we'll wrap it up for you. Just like kind of your thoughts and on the matchup in general.
Man, I'm obviously excited. It's the first home game of the season for the Chiefs. It's going to be, Arrowhead's going to be out there rocking for the big Thursday night primetime crowd. I just wish off of the short week, it makes things interesting though, because Trey Smith is questionable right now. And obviously, you like to have your whole offensive line intact versus the Chargers defensive line. But, I'm optimistic for it. I think that Patrick Mahomes showed the world that he's not going to miss a step. And, I think the Chargers are right where they want to be in position to try to overthrow the Chiefs also. So it's going to be a pretty good matchup to see who's going to be able to conquer who first of the season.
Isn't it weird how an elite quarterback just kind of figures a way out how to stay elite? Isn't that just kind of weird how that works out?
Yeah, it's strange. I'm sure here in a few years, if Allen ends up retiring or Mike Williams leaves or whatever, they're going to be saying the same things
Yeah.
about Justin Herbert. I mean, if Duke can throw the ball, he can throw anybody open from anywhere.
Yeah, the whole offseason of the Chiefs are gonna be worse and like all this stuff. I'm like, they still got Pat, they still got Andy Reid. They'll be fine. They'll be more than fine, of course. So Caleb, really appreciate the time tonight, man. Where can Chargers fans go and find your work if they want to get some last minute intel ahead of the matchup tomorrow night?
So you guys can go check me out on Twitter at CJ Scoobs. I write for Arrowhead Live, and I have a YouTube channel I've started also called Team Talk. I do doing some film breakdowns, some game previews, some stuff here and there about that. And I do think the Chiefs are going to win. I'll go 35-28 tomorrow.
All right, there we go. High scoring game. Can't wait to watch how it unfolds. Caleb, thanks for taking the time to join me tonight. Chargers fans, this was the More You Know Chiefs edition. Signing off.